My name is Martin Hayes, and I never thought I would be sharing this. I was a man of science, a geophysicist who spent years studying the Antarctic ice walls, never once believing in anything beyond what I could measure and observe. That changed on February 12th, 2025, when my life ended. I was on my latest expedition when disaster struck, and before I knew it, I was staring at my lifeless body from above. What happened next defied every law of physics I once trusted. Jesus showed me the truth about Antarctica, the deception coming, and what lies beyond the ice. It was supposed to be a routine expedition, just another day in the cold, uncharted regions of Antarctica. The scientific team, including myself, had been researching strange electromagnetic signals coming from deep beneath the ice. These signals had been detected for months, fluctuating in ways that defied any logical explanation. My job was to analyze the patterns and determine if they were connected to undiscovered geothermal activity or some unknown force lurking beneath the frozen surface. On the morning of February 12, 2025, I woke up early in our research base. The sun barely reached the horizon, casting an eerie blue glow across the ice fields. As I suited up in my thermal gear, I felt an unease I couldn't explain. It wasn't fear, just an instinct that something was off. I dismissed it as exhaustion from weeks of sleepless nights. The mission that day involved drilling deeper than ever before, targeting a region that had been emitting unusual low-frequency vibrations. The deeper we drilled, the stranger things became. Equipment malfunctioned, our GPS systems glitched, and even the radios picked up distorted whispers, sounds that weren't coming from any of us. Then, at precisely 11:42 a.m. it happened. A massive fissure opened beneath my feet. The ice, solid and unbreakable just moments before, collapsed like fragile glass. I had no time to react. One moment I was standing on solid ground. The next, I was falling into darkness, surrounded by nothing but freezing silence. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the radio crackling in my earpiece. Someone from my team screamed my name, but I was already gone. The mission to Antarctica had been planned for over a year. Our goal was simple: uncover the source of the anomalies beneath the ice. For decades, scientists had speculated about what lay hidden underneath the frozen wastelands, and our research team had received government clearance to investigate areas that had been strictly restricted for years. What we found was nothing we expected. Days before my death, we had discovered evidence of structures beneath the ice, man-made formations, or something older than human civilization. The data didn't make sense. Satellite imagery hinted at perfectly symmetrical formations, impossible geometric patterns, and something massive buried miles below. I had never believed in conspiracy theories, but standing there, staring at radar images of things that shouldn't exist, I knew something had been hidden from the world. The deeper we dug, the more unnatural things became. Our drills should have been encountering solid ice, but instead we found hollow chambers where the temperature was warmer than it should be. The air held a strange electric charge, making our instruments flicker wildly. Then something cut our communications. One moment we were connected to mission control, and the next all signals were dead. No radio, no satellite phone, no emergency beacons, just static. That's when the ground beneath us trembled, and within minutes the entire drilling site began to sink. I tried to call out to my team, but then everything collapsed. The moment my body hit the ice, I should have felt pain, crushing, suffocating pain, but I didn't. Instead, I felt light, free. It took me a moment to understand what had happened. I was floating. Beneath me, my body lay twisted, partially buried under shattered ice. I should have been horrified, but I wasn't. There was no panic, no struggle, just an overwhelming calmness that defied logic. Then I saw them, figures in white, glowing beings, standing at the edge of the fissure, watching silently. I couldn't see their faces, but they radiated a presence so powerful I knew instantly they weren't human. As I turned, I felt a pull, a force drawing me upward. The ice, the ruins, my team, they all faded. A tunnel of brilliant light opened before me, unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't just light, it was alive. It hummed with energy, with power, and without hesitation I stepped forward. Then I heard his voice. Martin. It was the most powerful yet gentle voice I had ever heard. The moment he spoke my name, I knew who it was. No one had to tell me. Jesus. Tears filled my eyes as I saw him standing before me, his presence more real than anything I had ever known. Every doubt I had about the afterlife, about faith, about science, it all crumbled in that moment. You have been brought here for a reason. What you are about to see must be shared. I turned back and saw my body lifeless on the ice. The rescue team had arrived, frantically working to revive me. My heart had stopped for 12 minutes, but as I watched them, I realized something disturbing. They weren't alone. Dark figures moved around them, unseen by the living, whispering things I couldn't understand. I felt an instinctive dread, knowing whatever they were, they didn't belong to the light. They were drawn to death, to fear, circling like vultures. Then Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. Do not fear them. They have no power over those who are mine. As he spoke, the dark figures recoiled, hissing as they vanished into the shadows. The world is blind to what exists beyond their sight, but you will see. Come, Martin, there is something you must understand about what lies beneath Antarctica. At his words, the scenery around me shifted, and suddenly I was no longer in the ice fields. I was somewhere else, somewhere that defied everything I thought I knew. As Jesus took my hand, the icy ruins of Antarctica faded away. I expected to be enveloped in the familiar tunnel of light that so many near-death survivors have described, but what I saw was different. The light was not merely a tunnel, it was a gateway, a threshold between realities. It stretched before me like an infinite path, yet I knew instinctively that this was no ordinary passage. The air, or whatever surrounded me, felt charged, as if vibrating with a presence beyond comprehension. I took a cautious step forward, and instantly I was moving without effort, pulled towards something greater. Colors beyond human perception flickered around me, shifting and merging in ways my mind struggled to process. It was beautiful, yet overwhelming. Then, as suddenly as the journey had begun, it stopped. I found myself standing on solid ground, though the surface beneath my feet was unlike anything I had ever felt. It wasn't rock, wasn't ice, but something living, pulsing with energy. Jesus stood beside me, his presence radiating pure love and authority. Look, Martin, and see what has been hidden. Before me stretched a landscape I did not recognize. It was not heaven, not earth, but something else. And at its center, rising like a fortress from the very foundations of existence, were walls of ice, colossal, ancient and unbroken. A realization hit me like a hammer. These were not natural formations. The Antarctic ice walls were placed here for a reason, Jesus said, his voice both sorrowful and firm, and soon the world will seek to break them. I turned to look at him, my mind racing with questions. But as my eyes met his, all doubt and fear melted away. His face, I can barely describe it. It was both familiar and beyond human comprehension, filled with immeasurable wisdom and compassion. His eyes, deep, endless pools of light, held all knowledge, all understanding. "You were chosen to see this because you have spent your life searching for answers," he said. "But some truths cannot be measured. They must be revealed." I felt tears streaming down my spiritual form, though I did not know why. It was as if his presence exposed every doubt I had ever held, yet he loved me anyway. He raised his hand, and suddenly I saw the earth as it truly was, not through human eyes, but through a divine perspective. The Antarctic region, which I had spent my life studying, looked different. The ice walls were not just barriers of nature, but something far greater, something placed by design. "There is a reason men have been kept from knowing what lies beyond," Jesus said, "and soon that protection will be lifted." A deep sadness filled his voice, and I knew that what he was about to show me would change my understanding of reality forever. As Jesus extended his hand, my vision expanded. It was as if I had been blind all my life and was suddenly seeing beyond the veil. I saw Antarctica from above, but this was not the barren wasteland I knew. Beneath the ice, buried deep within layers untouched by time, were vast structures, cities, fortresses, and something else, something alive. These walls were placed to seal what should not be touched, Jesus explained. I watched in horror as governments and scientists, including my own colleagues, drilled deeper and deeper, unknowingly disturbing what had been kept dormant for eons. They believed they were uncovering the past, but they were unleashing something far older than mankind. Beneath the ice, hidden entities stirred. They had been there long before humanity, sealed away by divine decree. Their presence had been masked by science, dismissed as myths, but they were very real. I saw future events unfolding, news broadcasts about groundbreaking discoveries in Antarctica, leaders speaking of new technological advancements, whispers of alien contact. But it was all a deception. The world would be told that these findings were a step forward, an evolutionary milestone, but in truth, it was the beginning of the end. "Satan's greatest weapon is deception," Jesus said, "and the world is walking straight into his trap." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to believe that the discoveries in Antarctica were simply scientific breakthroughs, nothing more. But Jesus showed me the deeper truth. "They have been planning this for decades," he said, "preparing the world to accept what is coming." I saw government meetings, secret discussions between elite figures, and behind it all, a greater force at work. They weren't just uncovering history, they were following a script. Jesus showed me a world on the brink, economic collapse, geopolitical unrest, fear spreading like wildfire. And then, the announcement. The world's leaders would claim that something had been found beneath Antarctica, something powerful, something game-changing. They would tell humanity that it was the key to our future, the next stage of evolution, and people would believe them. "The enemy will present it as enlightenment," Jesus warned. "A gift, a way to bring humanity together. But what they are really doing is opening a door that should never be opened." I felt cold terror creeping into my soul as I realized what he meant. This wasn't just about hidden civilizations or ancient structures. This was about something far more sinister. The Antarctic ice walls were not barriers, they were seals, and what lay beneath them was never meant to rise again. Jesus stood beside me as the vision unfolded before my eyes. What I had once dismissed as religious metaphors, spiritual warfare, fallen entities, hidden realms, were now undeniably real. The Antarctic ice walls were not merely physical barriers, they were seals placed by divine authority, to prevent something far more dangerous from emerging into our world. "The battle has never been of flesh and blood," Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow. "It has always been between forces beyond human sight, and now the enemy prepares for his greatest deception." Before me I saw beings of darkness, their forms twisting in and out of the ice, their presence causing the very air to tremble. These were not human, not extraterrestrial as many believed, but something else entirely. They had been banished, locked away beneath the frozen wasteland, their influence restrained for thousands of years. But mankind, in its arrogance and thirst for knowledge, was about to set them free. A massive rift appeared in the ice, and from within it, shadows began to seep into the world. Scientists, unaware of what they had unleashed, celebrated their discoveries, while leaders watched in secret, knowing exactly what they had done. The world would soon change, but not in the way people expected. "They will come disguised as saviors," Jesus said, his eyes filled with deep sadness, "and many will welcome them with open arms." As the vision continued, I was shown what lay beyond the Antarctic ice walls, something I had never imagined in my wildest dreams. The ice did not simply conceal ancient ruins or buried civilizations. It was a gateway, a boundary between our world and something else. A city, colossal in scale, built with materials unknown to mankind, lay hidden beneath the surface. The architecture was not of human origin. Its structures were geometrically impossible, shifting and pulsating as if they were alive. At the center of this city stood a throne, but the one who would sit upon it was not of God. I watched as world leaders, the wealthy, the powerful, and even some spiritual figures gathered around this structure, their eyes filled with awe and reverence. They had been waiting for this moment. This was not just an archaeological discovery, it was a long-planned unveiling. Jesus turned to me. "They will say it is a new beginning, a new age of enlightenment, but you now see the truth. It is the final deception." I saw news broadcasts flooding television screens worldwide, journalists speaking of a revelation that would redefine history. Scientists would claim that humanity was never alone, that this discovery proved our connection to beings beyond our understanding. And then I saw the ultimate lie unfold. The world would be told that these ancient beings were humanity's true creators, that the old religions, including Christianity, had misunderstood their origins. The deception would be so great, even the elect would be at risk of believing it. Jesus looked at me, and his next words sent chills through my soul. "The true test of faith will begin here." I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding with dread. How can they not see? How will people believe this? His expression was both sorrowful and firm. "Because the enemy does not use force. He uses deception. He will not make them choose between good and evil. He will convince them that evil is good." I saw worldwide celebrations, people rejoicing as governments announced their new partnership with these so-called advanced beings. Technology would advance at an impossible rate, offering cures for diseases, endless energy, and even artificial extensions of life. The world would embrace it as progress, but in exchange, they would be required to surrender something far greater: their free will, their spiritual discernment, their connection to God. "The mark will come after this," Jesus warned, not as a command, but as a choice wrapped in promise. They will be told it is the next step in human evolution, that it will make them stronger, healthier, more intelligent. But what they do not realize is that it will sever them from me forever. I watched as people lined up to receive the upgrade. It wasn't forced, it wasn't even feared. They wanted it. They craved it. Because by now, Their minds had already been prepared through decades of conditioning. I saw churches divided, some warning against this evolution of mankind, others embracing it. Many spiritual leaders stood on stages, reassuring their followers that this was not the mark of the beast, but simply progress. But then Jesus showed me the spiritual consequence. As each person accepted this gift, something within them dimmed. Their ability to pray with sincerity weakened. Their connection to God's presence was severed. They could no longer hear the Holy Spirit, nor feel the weight of conviction. They were still walking, still speaking, still living their daily lives, but they were no longer the same. Their souls had been altered in a way that could never be undone. As I stood frozen in horror, Jesus reached out and touched my shoulder. "It is time for you to return. You have seen what is coming. Now you must warn them." I wanted to stay. I wanted to ask him so much more. But before I could speak, everything faded. The next moment, I gasped for air. My body convulsed as I felt the sting of reality flood back into me. Doctors shouted in shock. I had been dead for 12 minutes. I looked around, dazed, trying to comprehend what had just happened. My team stood nearby, some in tears, others speechless. The scientific instruments still flickered, registering anomalies beneath the ice, as if they too had sensed something had changed. But I knew. I had seen what was coming. As I lay in that hospital bed, I realized why I had been sent back. The world needed to know. The deception was coming, and few were prepared. Jesus had shown me the truth. Now it was my mission to share it. Would they listen? That was no longer in my hands. The moment my body came back to life, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. My lungs burned as I gasped for air, my heart hammering as though it had been restarted by an unseen force. The sterile smell of the hospital room was the first thing I registered, followed by the frantic voices of my medical team. "He's back!" a nurse shouted, pressing her fingers to my wrist to check my pulse. Doctors surrounded me, their faces a mix of disbelief and urgency. I had been dead for 12 minutes. No brain activity, no heartbeat, yet here I was, fully conscious, staring at them with the weight of eternity in my eyes. But what shook them the most wasn't my revival. It was the way I returned. I sat up almost immediately, gripping the edges of the hospital bed, overwhelmed by the memories of what I had just seen. My mind felt like it had split in two, one part grounded in the physical world, the other still tethered to the vision Jesus had shown me. I wasn't the same. I would never be the same. A doctor, a tall man with graying hair and a skeptical frown, finally spoke. "Martin, you were clinically dead. Do you remember anything?" I stared at him, my throat dry, my chest aching. How could I possibly explain what I had seen? My voice was hoarse as I whispered the only truth that mattered. Jesus is real. The deception is coming, and Antarctica, it's not what we think it is. The room fell silent. Some of them exchanged uneasy glances, while others dismissed my words as delirium. But one nurse, a younger woman standing near the back, looked at me with wide eyes, as if she understood. She took a hesitant step forward. I've heard things about Antarctica, about what they don't tell us." The doctor shot her a warning glance, but I could see the fear in her expression. She wasn't dismissing me. She believed me, and that was the moment I realized why I had been sent back. The world needed to know. In the weeks following my return, I struggled with what to do. I knew what I had seen. I knew what Jesus had revealed to me. But how could I make the world listen? Scientists, skeptics, even my own colleagues would laugh in my face if I told them that Antarctica was not just a frozen wasteland, but a sealed battleground between forces beyond human understanding. I tried to go back to my normal life, to immerse myself in research, but everything felt hollow. My work, once my greatest passion, now seemed meaningless in the face of eternity. At night, the visions wouldn't stop. I saw the deception unfolding, governments releasing small fragments of truth, preparing the public for the grand lie. News stations began reporting unexplained heat signatures beneath the ice and mysterious findings of ancient ruins. I saw leaders discussing how to control the narrative, how to introduce this discovery in phases so that when the time came, the world would embrace it as truth. Jesus' words echoed in my mind. They will say it is enlightenment. They will say it is progress. But it is the final deception. I couldn't stay silent. I had to warn people, but I also knew the risks. Those who spoke out, those who tried to expose the truth, often disappeared. Their careers ruined, their credibility shattered, their voices drowned in mockery and misinformation. So I started small. I shared my testimony with trusted friends, people I knew had open hearts and discerning minds. Some believed me immediately. Others hesitated, fearing what it might mean if I was right. But then, something happened that confirmed everything. A former government official, someone with deep ties to classified Antarctic research, reached out to me. He had heard my story, and what he told me sent chills through my soul. "You're not wrong, Martin," he said. "There's something under that ice, and they're getting ready to reveal it to the world, but not in the way you think." I asked him what he meant, but he refused to say more. He just left me with this warning: when they announce it, don't believe a word they say. And now, here I am, writing this message because time is running out. If you're reading this, know that this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not speculation. This is a warning. In the coming months, maybe even weeks, the world will start seeing major announcements about Antarctica. They will say they've made a historic discovery, something that will change the way we see our origins. They will tell you it is proof of humanity's true past. They will frame it as a moment of unity, a step toward a brighter future for mankind. But it will be a lie. What lies beneath the ice was never meant to be uncovered. The ice walls were placed there for a reason, to seal something in, not keep us out. And now, mankind is about to break that seal. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I beg you, when you see it happening, remember this testimony. Do not accept the narrative they feed you. Do not be deceived by promises of enlightenment, progress, or new knowledge. Stay in prayer. Stay close to Jesus. The deception is coming, but those who are awake, those who are prepared, will not be fooled. This is my testimony. I don't know how much longer I have, but I had to share this before it's too late. May God give you eyes to see and ears to hear. After sharing my testimony, I thought I would feel relief, but instead, I felt an even greater weight on my soul. The more I watched the world unfold, the clearer it became. Everything Jesus had shown me was already beginning. Reports of unexplained phenomena in Antarctica increased. The media, once silent about the region, now ran mysterious headlines hinting at discoveries beneath the ice. Scientists I once worked with appeared on television, discussing breakthrough findings that would soon be disclosed to the public. I felt sick to my stomach. I wasn't just watching the future approach, I was watching it unfold in real time. One night, unable to sleep, I turned on the news. A panel of experts was discussing recent findings from the ice sheets, suggesting that something strange and ancient had been detected in the deep layers. The anchor called it the greatest scientific discovery of our time. I froze. The way they spoke, it wasn't just excitement, it was calculated. The way they introduced the information, the slow but deliberate conditioning of the public, the hints at something more, it was exactly what Jesus had warned me about. I knew what would come next. First, they would drip-feed information, warming people up to the idea of a hidden past. Then they would slowly push the deception forward, using trusted voices, scientists, political leaders, even spiritual figures, to convince the world that what was coming was a gift. I thought back to what Jesus had said. They will not make them choose between good and evil. They will convince them that evil is good. This was the beginning of that process. I turned off the TV, my hands shaking. I needed to do more. In the days that followed, I struggled with what to do next. I was just one man, one voice among billions. How could I possibly stop what was coming? But then I remembered what Jesus told me. It is not your job to convince the world. It is your job to tell them. Those who seek truth will recognize it. And so I decided to go all in. I reached out to journalists, alternative news outlets, even former colleagues who I knew were already suspicious of the official Antarctic narratives. Some listened, some laughed. But I wasn't discouraged. The truth was never meant for the masses. It was meant for those with eyes to see. As I worked to spread the warning, something strange happened. People I didn't know, scientists, researchers, even former military personnel, began reaching out to me privately. They had seen things they weren't allowed to talk about. Some had been involved in classified Antarctic operations and had come across unexplainable structures. Others had been silenced when they asked too many questions. One message in particular haunted me. A man claiming to be a former government scientist sent me an encrypted email. It contained one chilling sentence: "You were right, but it's already too late." I read those words over and over, my mind racing. Did he mean the deception had already begun, that the seal had already been broken? I tried to contact him again, but the email was gone, deleted, no trace of it ever existing. Fear clawed at my chest. What if Jesus had shown me these things not as a warning to prevent them, but as a final call to prepare those who would listen? I sat in the dim light of my office, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. I had spent my entire career searching for truth in science, in logic, in the natural world. But the greatest truth had been revealed to me beyond death itself. And now my time to share it was running out. I grabbed my phone and opened my recording app. If you are hearing this, it means the deception has begun. I took a deep breath. Do not believe what they tell you. The ice walls were never meant to be broken. The world will soon witness miracles, but they are false. You must stay grounded in the truth. Hold fast to Jesus. Do not take the upgrade. Do not accept the mark. Stay awake. Stay prepared. The time is now. I hit save, feeling an overwhelming peace settle over me. I had done what I was called to do. Now, the rest was in God's hands.